Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Sunday morning it is.
Sunday morning, but we're ready.
The last Sunday morning of this matchathon and the EUvsVirus events, really. We're probably going to come back at you with some other shows in the future. No spoilers yet. But the plan for today is what, Ilya?
Show how the public sector can work with startups to combat COVID-19.
And that's really been the key focus of all of these initiatives set up by the European Commission and the EUvsVirus hackathon and now matchathon, is to connect startups with the different stakeholders in the economy of every nation around Europe and internationally, because you need public support, you need private support, and that is what today is about. We're going to talk about public support, and just remember that today we'll have the closing ceremony this evening at what time? 6ish, I think it is.
Yes,
6 p.m. But between those hours, I think we have about 5 streams, right, Lydia?
With wonderful people, just like yesterday. It's super influential people, but also some teams. So we would like you to tune in. And also during this session, if you have any experience with working with a public sector that has done something really great, let us know.
Write it in the comments below. And as we say in every single live stream, don't forget that if you don't watch it now, if someone might watch it next week, next year, next month, whatever, they would like to see things in those comments that could lead them somewhere. So for example, if you tag your startup, as you should do, Guide Your Guide, yesterday, they've done a fantastic job of that. One of the great teams. They will see that. They will follow through. You might find an investor. You might find a public partner, a corporate partner, whatever.
Yeah, we've actually seen that happening. So it is possible.
It is possible. But today and right now is specifically focusing on sort of how the public sector can support startups during this COVID time. And we're going to hear from, we've got 4 people on the call right now. We were meant to have 6, but such is Sunday morning. Such as Sunday morning. Those 4 people we're going to chat to right now: Simona Grande, Paola Bernardi, Bosch, Isik, Asar, Elif, Kosok, and Arune, Urte, Matelyte. Almost got there.
Almost got them. And they're coming in from all over the world.
But let's get to the first one.
Simona Grande, researcher at University of Torino. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has changed the way you work with startups?
Definitely. And first of all, thank you for thank you for inviting us and for having us during this session. It's very nice to be live with you this morning. We've been following you since the hackathon, so it's very nice to now be to have an active role during this session as well. So thank you very much again from the whole institution. So of course, the emergency is forcing schools and universities all over the world to provide their training online now. So some institutions are definitely better prepared than other ones to meet this challenge. And others have been testing these approaches for the first time in these weeks. So for example, for our institution, there have been forces consisting of colleagues from IT and experts who supported accelerated training of digital platforms and also student engagement tools in a peer-to-peer training process, let's say. However, we know that doing online teaching effectively is not only a matter of technologies and platforms. It requires redesigning the entire training approach and the entire educational experience. So a great effort has been made to redefine the programming and the contents of the courses in order to ensure an active, inclusive, and a participatory role for the students, even remotely, to avoid the classic problem of dropout, for example.
So what is your general experience with working with startups, and why is it important?
Well, we have an extensive experience with working with startups. We do collaborate at European level with EIT, with the European and Hey Innovate, because we believe that entrepreneurship produces great value for society and economic and community development at large. Entrepreneurs create novel organizations, products, and services, but mainly they're engines for job creation, for technology advancements, for economic growth, and especially we are from the Department of Management, so definitely it's something that we take into consideration. And beyond the economic impact, there's also a growing evidence that entrepreneurship has the ability to shape culture and mindsets in generating solutions to societal problems. And this is actually and exactly what is happening right now during the hackathon and matchathon. So we do collaborate with startups, and we try to foster entrepreneurship through our courses and activities. And it's something that we really want to reinforce even more.
Simona, all right, real talk now. You and me, forget everyone else. What's working and what's not working? What can we learn from your experiences so far?
So you mean during the hackathon and matchathon, or in general?
Well, during the hackathon and matchathon specifically, and also, I mean, if you have some generalized terms too, that'd be really interesting to learn from.
Well, the biggest learning from these opportunities and these engagements, and of course from the hackathon and matchathon, is that more and more we need to foster collaborations and multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder approaches in all our activities. So from research to education, and so definitely this collaboration is of great impact, and so we wish to foster it even more. That's something that really works well, and engaging students in hackathons, for example, or even professors, is something that can really impact their experience and can really lead them to different scenario. Like even for me, like my first experiences in this world and in entrepreneurship have been through hackathons. So definitely it's something that it's really important for us.
Simona, thank you so much. We will get back to you with one final question in the end. What is your biggest takeaway from this crisis, either personal or business-wise?
You have this audience. What do you want to tell them?
Yes.
Take this opportunity. Take this opportunity to tell this audience something, a learning, a lesson. It can be inspirational, but my only caveat to that is please keep it either one word or one sentence. No prolonged sentence. But it's always hardest to pack something in, but then they can be more meaningful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Simona. All right, let's head over to Lander Bosch. He's from the Department of Geography at the University of Cambridge. Lander, good morning, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Good morning, Matt and Iria. Thank you for your sustained enthusiasm on Sunday morning as well.
It is true. It is up now. It's easy when we get to talk to great people like yourselves, and we're part of this initiative that we are grateful to be the sort of the voices for at the moment. But Lander, you're back home right now, right? Whereabouts are you now?
I'm in Brussels now, which I think is also a consequence of the coronavirus crisis, of course, with universities working on a remote basis as well where possible. And so, yeah, first of all, thank you very much as well for having me this morning. It's great to be a part of this initiative, and I think it's been tremendous over the past few days already.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you, Lander. Okay, Lander, I want to ask a similar question we're going to ask all of our presenters this morning about, how has the pandemic changed your way of working with startups, during this COVID period right now?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the impacts are tremendous, of course. As I said, there is a remote working where possible basis, which means that the impact is on societal tissue within the university, which tends to be sort of an incubating environment of networks and ideas and exchange of thoughts. But of course, the implications are much stronger and more profound than that. With fields like STEM or physical sciences and geography in my own field, or biomedical sciences, having had large amounts of fieldwork and experiments interrupted or even abandoned altogether. That puts a tremendous amount of stress and a tremendous amount of flexibility and creativity are required from the staff and the students.
But there's an interesting narrative there, Lander, just jumping in there about, we had a talk yesterday about universities supporting the research and development for, obviously predominantly at the moment, a lot of focus is on healthcare, right, and medicals, as it should be, preventative and things like that, and treating the COVID-19. With research institutions such as yours, have they parked those that are less, not as priority-wise, and said, everyone stop what you're doing, we'll come back to that in 6 to 12 months' time. We need to fix this problem. Has there been a shift in focus?
Well, absolutely. I think at this point, when you say remote working, where possible, it means that the essential research is still being carried out. I mean, in that case, looking at, COVID-related biomedical science research, or the staff from the university working in healthcare themselves. On the other hand, large amounts of research that are not directly related to these areas have been parked. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at really urgently as well, because you create an environment in which certain types of research that are crucial to tackling the crisis, such as societal implications, mental health and well-being aspects of this crisis, are temporarily being more tough to work on. And that, combined with an environment in which probably public funding will be more restrained, is going to create an interesting and challenging environment, I think. And that's something as well where startups can come in and contribute tremendously, I think, in the future.
So Lander, do you have any reflections on how public institution can work with startups post-COVID?
Absolutely. I think that there is a crucial role for startups there in generating the scientific evidence base for policymaking and academic research. In my own experience as a health geographer, I look at the relation between place and health and how disease spreads across cities, in particularly among vulnerable populations, in my case. And what I find is that startups are vital there in providing the tailor-made, flexible and creative resources that we use for that kind of research. Designing the study is the domain of a health geographer and an academic institution. And on the other hand, there are the policymakers who implement or at least we hope can implement measures based on the scientific evidence we gain. But the flexible tools and the creativity that startups brings in terms of practical monitors, such as air pollution monitors we use in my research, such as brainwave sensors we use in my research, they come from startups and they are vital in this kind of evidence gathering.
It's this connection of startups who come up with these problems they want to try and find solutions for, go to organizations and research institutions to get that evidence-based research, create a business out of it, and then that affects the policymakers to change the policies around that, right? So they're all interconnected, actually.
Absolutely. And I mean, what you see now is that such as public health startups have really become producers of the gold standard equipment, for instance, to do this kind of research. So they've grown from an idea, often in collaborations with academia, and now have become really sort of level solution providers, which is a tremendous achievement.
Lander, thank you so much. So I'm going to come back to you at the end of this question that Urte and I love to ask all of our guests. If you could share with the audience you have at your disposal right now, this morning, one lesson, one learning, it can be personal, professional, from the last 2.5 months of your experience with COVID, we would love you to share this. So have a think about that, one word or one sentence. Thank you, Lander.
Thank you. Over to you, Elif Kosok, which is coordinator of venture capital support group at TUBITAK. Elif, how has the pandemic changed the way you work with startups?
First of all, I also want to thank you for invitation in order to share the experience on the pandemic. Before we start, this is the first day of our Ramadan Bayram, so we would like to congratulate and wish to bring health and prosperity to all people in the world. Regarding your question, we have to say that the difficult times require fast and different decisions. TUBITAK has made an agile response to COVID-19 by activating its support mechanisms, and we continue to support innovative ideas in this sense. The response to COVID-19 pandemic from the perspective of R&D and innovation based on the measures that are undertaken by TUBITAK involve a rapid mobilization of the research. TUBITAK recognizes the critical importance of science-based approach and novel developments in the process of combating the COVID-19 pandemic. For this reason, in addition to existing support programs and co-creation model, new coalitions have been formed. In record time, first new call has been launched. This agile response, TUBITAK activating its support mechanisms and public institutions, universities, research centers, private sectors, startups, SMEs, entrepreneurs, technology transfer offices, accelerators, technoparks, all of them have been working together in this process. TÜBİTAK made a platform for this COVID-19 experiences.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So in terms of the lessons that you've learned from this as an organization working with startups during, pre-COVID, during COVID, and now hopefully post-COVID, what lessons have you learned, and how do you feel that organizations, both public, can work with startups after COVID? So let's take that forward-looking approach right now. What have you seen work, and how can we set ourselves up for success?
TÜBİTAK made lots of calls for the startups and try to learn from them also. Because as a consequence, in subject that requires rapid action, TÜBİTAK demonstrates the ability to regulate business processes in the field of technological innovation to adapt to new emerging conditions. Our institution showed that the bureaucracy could also be agile for the benefit of society. The experience and gains gained here have created work models that can be applied to other calls and processes. For example, our referees evaluating the projects starts to virtual meeting with the projects. Before that, all referees have to go to project and evaluate them on their side. But this virtual evaluation gives us lots of time, and our procedures have shortened.
Thank you so much, Elif. We will get back to you as well with your biggest takeaways from the COVID-19, either personal or business-wise.
There's some running threads that people have come back with, and I'm taking notes of all of them. So say something interesting, because I want to call actually this evening. I'm gonna make a list of the top things that were said by people's learnings and lessons, both public and private sectors, to the startup industry as well. Thank you, Elif. Let's head over to Arune, Urte, Matelyte.
Almost got it.
Almost perfect.
Yeah.
GovTech Lab, Lithuania. I've been to Lithuania. I love the place. Been there many times. Firstly, how is your institution working with startups in this COVID climate?
Yeah, well, first, as everyone else, I'd like to thank for inviting me here. And just for a bit of a context, GovTech Lab is part of actually Lithuania's innovation agency, so innovations for agency for science, innovation, and technology. But we're actually a team in public sector that was created to open up public sector to startups. So for us, this kind of crisis was also showed, how much if public institutions want to work with startups, they can. Because we saw kind of something from some of the learnings are from our perspective, but because we work with across the public sector, so we saw that kind of before, maybe there was a bit more suspicion around working with startups, what if they will fail, what if they will not deliver, and there was that bias towards very long lasting, all the organizations that have proven solutions. But of course, I mean, this is the crisis that no one has a solution for, right? So I think that kind of opened up the public sector as well, in terms of now they're looking for out-of-the-box solutions. So you cannot write a specification how you will solve a COVID crisis and then buy it. You need to think a bit out of the box, and I think that's kind of then the key place for startups, how they can kind of start working with the public sector and the opportunity to kind of prove that, in these very volatile kind of environment, they can deliver, and they can show that, they have the knowledge and the capacity to actually solve certain aspects of the crisis. And for us, I mean, before, with the word GovTech was not very much used in the public space, and that's why we created the GovTech Lab last year. And this has been kind of, people keep emailing us as well. Do you have a solution for this or this? Do you know any startups working with this? Or, do you have any contacts with this government department? So for us, in a way, it kind of built the awareness how important it is to have this kind of diverse stakeholders in terms of when you want to work, when you want to solve public sector challenges. So, you know, it's been an interesting time kind of giving that importance to startups as in comparison to like older just companies that work usually with public sector.
So if you were to give one advice to public institutions who would like to start working with startups, what should that advice be?
I think the main one for actually both startups and public sector institutions is trying to be very empathetic and understandable. So, I mean, public sector and startups have very different ways of working, and I mean, there are reasons for that. And I think having that understanding, you know, where each of the like parties are coming from, that's kind of the key to further successful successful partnerships, because we've seen that, you know, where there was a mutual understanding, you know, what actually we're trying to achieve, and that kind of openness to, you know, that maybe you know, some of the things will not be written up as neatly as you would like in public sector to be. But I think in this crisis, everyone had to work very, very fast. And that kind of brought up maybe a bit the speed of public sector to the speed of startups, because you just didn't have a choice, right? You needed to act very, very quickly. So I think that, but that kind of, that understanding, I hope, will remain afterwards, because I mean, because this situation showed that public sector can work with startups. So I think the most important bit is that they keep that kind of mindset and keep that perspective that, you know, okay, this is the pace and the way that startups work. Maybe we don't work that way usually, but like, let's try to adapt our rules and our ways of working so that we can have like, we can include those ideas and innovations from the startup community to public sector work.
Arune, there's something that I was told recently in one of our live streams about the Baltic states. So Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. You have this, the Baltic states, for those of you who don't know, are very digital first. They're very digitally savvy. Estonia, for example, has they have an e-residency where you can become an e-resident. Latvia has a startup visa and all these types of things, and Lithuania is included in that. I've heard that you have now created a border around the Baltics, so you are allowed to travel within the Baltics. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was the first kind of travel bubble created in Europe where we could then travel between all the three countries and don't have to stay in self-isolation for the next 14 days. And so I think, yeah, it's nice. It shows that, you know, we're kind of trying to work on these solutions together as well. You know, we've been organizing like the hackathons in the first week of crisis, like together, like reflecting afterwards together of, you know, how it was done. So I think it was a good way to see that, you know, that kind of Baltic sisterhood or brotherhood has not been lost anywhere. We're still cooperating and working together.
And Tallinn in Estonia was very much the epicenter of this hackathon movement, was it not?
Yeah, they were the first ones to organize it, and I think like one day or something. So
yeah, exactly. We've seen that movement now lead on to what we're doing right now as well. So thank you so much, Arune. We're going to come back to you at the end just in a minute. And everyone at home right now, if you are watching this from the Baltics, give us a shout out. Yeah. Say hey from Tallinn, hey from Latvia, say hey from Riga, wherever you are in the world. And actually, in general, we have a fun little thing we like to do, which is tag your flag.
Yes.
Tag your flag. So you can go in the comments, post the emoji of your flag. We want to see a beautiful, colorful array this Sunday morning.
Simona, over to you again. Have you been reflecting on the lesson?
Yes, I did, and it's very much in line with what Arune was saying previously. So that somehow this emergency has fostered and accelerated a rethinking, conversations, collaborations, and innovation and self-organizations as never before, and as we couldn't expect. So this hackathon and matchathon is, of course, a clear example of it, and it's my biggest lesson.
Thank you, Simona.
Let's head over to who is next on the list. Let me have a look. Is it Landa?
Yes,
Landa. Hello, mate. Set over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen from the past couple of days from this matchathon is that, you know, an initiative based in solidarity, such as the European Commission's matchathon at this moment, combined with the energy and creativity of many people, especially the young people involved from not only in the EU but across the world, can really contribute to making progress to tackling some of the greatest challenges. And very, I think, hopeful for a post-corona era.
Cheers, Lando.
Elif, next up is you.
Elif?
Are you with us?
Hey, there you are.
Hi.
Welcome back. What's your big lesson? What's your big lesson?
Thank you. Regarding the Coronathon Turkey competition, hackathon for startups and entrepreneurs who have business ideas regarding the fight against COVID-19. Application proceeds through 3 universities in our country, and in this scope, 30 business ideas were found eligible for support. On the other hand, the technology-based innovative startups, which are expected to accelerate development, face many important issues. Among the most important issues facing startups are their difficulties accessing to finance, using mentorship, and collaborating with large entities. So our institutions try to help them in their respect. We have many programs with these young innovative startups. One of them is Big Techno Entrepreneurship Support Program since 2012. The aim of this grant program is to support entrepreneurs to create technology-based startups with R&D capacity. These programs bring with a bright idea, and accelerators play a big role here. The accelerators in universities run their in-house programs to support entrepreneurs in idea maturation. If the startups become successful on their technology, they can get other supports from TUBITAK also. Up to 1,000 euro, for example. For their grow up and access to other markets, we have another program also, Tech Investor Venture Capital Support Program. With this program, it's aimed at supporting early stage technology-based startups through funding them the venture capital they need.
Sounds like a great support you've got set up there, Elif. Thank you for that one. Let's head over to Arune. How have you, or what is the experience you would like to share, the big lesson?
I think just building what I was talking before and what Simona said as well is that, I mean, the key in solving future challenges will be these kind of unexpected partnerships that you might not know if they're going to work, who are you going to work with. So the key would be just be open-minded, flexible, and adaptable. I think that would be the key way on how to solve this and then future challenges as well. And it's for everyone on a personal level, but also on organizational level in public sector institutions and startups as well.
Aruna, thank you so much. And thank you to Simona, Lander, and Elif. It was a great chat.
It was a great chat. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know it's a Sunday morning and you came, you're all here. We love you for it. Some really good words shared. Just to sum things up, a few things that stood out to me from this conversation was that entrepreneurship can shape culture, which is something that we're seeing consistently throughout these hackathons that Urte and I have been part of. And actually that, again, to Lander's point about university playing a vital role in the scientific evidence-based research to support startups that can then influence public policy. So this is very much a complementary pillars to get ourselves and fight COVID is the collaboration of public and private and then obviously policymakers going forward. And who knows, maybe Aruna, we could create a European travel bubble. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a medical expert. I know we need to stem travel at the moment to stop the spread and flatten the curve. But who knows? Maybe in the future we could start that and then open things up in the future. But one thing we've learned from all of this is we can get by virtually and very well. friction has been reduced, allowing us to have meetings immediately and virtually. And they've been productive so far for me, at least.
Yes,
for
and
you?
me as well. For me as well. We will be back 11:30 to talk with Isidro from the EU Commission and also a representative from UN. And we're going to be talking about research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So make sure to be back in, an hour.
An hour, exactly. We'll be back in an hour. And one last thing, there's a really cool example I've seen where public and private sector have collaborated in Norway. And that is with gyms. So there's a gym, I think the largest sort of gym network in Norway is called Sats Alexia. And what they've done is they've started a study now with the University of Oslo, the medical departments there. And this is something that maybe other organizations in universities elsewhere can take on. And obviously gyms are closed, right? So they've allowed a certain body of people, they've selected of their members, I think for free, of course. They've said, hey, we're going to let you into the gym and do a study and different age groups. And if someone gets sick, we'll be able to track who and where and when, and just to see how that works. And obviously they're testing out spraying, everything, equipment's wiping down. So an interesting study that I've seen been done. Anyway.
Fascinating. Yeah.
We'll be back in an hour. My name is Matt C. Smith. This is
Urte.
Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. Go back to your morning coffee or tea or whatever is your morning wake-up call. We'll see you in 1 hour.
1 hour.
1 hour. Ciao, ciao for now.